As seasons passed and the carved cities of Thamud stood unmoved beneath shifting skies, the presence of the she-camel continued to reshape daily life in ways both subtle and profound, turning routine into reflection and prosperity into tension, because every moment of coexistence with the miracle demanded a choice between humility and control. On the days assigned to the camel, when it approached the wells with calm certainty, normal order paused, and the people were forced to confront a reality they despised, that access to life-giving water was no longer governed solely by human authority. To the ordinary citizens, this was inconvenient; to the ruling elite, it was intolerable. Control of water meant control of survival, commerce, and loyalty, and the camel's presence symbolized a redistribution of power that no fortress or council decree could counter. Prophet Salih moved among them quietly, reminding them that the test was not meant to weaken their society but to purify it, to restore balance between strength and submission. Yet his calm warnings only deepened the hostility of those who thrived on dominance. Over time, resentment evolved into ideology, and influential figures reframed defiance as liberation, convincing the masses that obedience to divine command was an assault on human dignity. This manipulation of belief marked a crucial turning point, where moral accountability was recast as oppression, and arrogance disguised itself as independence. Within the stone-carved halls where leaders once planned trade and expansion, secret councils now convened to debate resistance, and voices that once trembled before the miracle grew bold with denial, arguing that delay in punishment proved falsehood, mistaking mercy for weakness. Salih warned them that history is filled with civilizations destroyed not because they lacked warning, but because they rejected it when it arrived from an unexpected direction, yet his words fell against walls of stone and pride. The youth, raised amid prosperity and untested by hardship, mocked what they did not understand, while elders clung to traditions stripped of meaning, unwilling to accept that success could coexist with moral failure. Slowly, the she-camel transformed from a sign into a symbol of humiliation, blamed for every hardship, every delay, every discomfort, and in this climate of scapegoating, violence became thinkable. Thamud's greatest flaw now revealed itself fully: they believed permanence was proof of righteousness, that carved mountains equaled divine approval, and that no unseen force could dismantle what human hands had perfected. Their architecture, once a triumph of ingenuity, became an echo chamber for denial, amplifying confidence while silencing conscience. Prophet Salih, sensing the nearing conclusion of his mission, intensified his call, reminding them that civilizations are judged not by what they build, but by how they respond when confronted with truth that threatens comfort. Still, the leaders pressed forward, driven by fear of losing authority more than fear of divine consequence, until defiance hardened into resolve and resolve into action. Beneath the towering cliffs, in the shadows of stone dwellings that symbolized their supposed immortality, the final decision took shape, marking the irreversible moment when Thamud chose to silence the sign rather than surrender control, unaware that by attempting to preserve their power, they were hastening its absolute and irreversible end. As the presence of the she-camel became woven into the rhythm of daily life, Thamud's society entered a slow, invisible unraveling, because the miracle did not arrive as sudden destruction but as prolonged confrontation, forcing every household, every leader, every laborer and merchant to live under the weight of a truth they refused to accept. Each appointed day when the camel drank from the wells, the people were reminded that their prosperity, once assumed to be self-made and permanent, now operated under conditions they did not control, and this subtle shift gnawed relentlessly at the foundations of their confidence. Water, the most precious resource in the desert, had always symbolized power, and whoever governed it governed survival itself. Now, that authority was shared by divine command, an arrangement that shattered the illusion of absolute human dominance. Prophet Salih continued his mission with unwavering composure, speaking to individuals and gatherings alike, reminding them that the camel was not a burden but a mercy, a sign sent before punishment, a chance granted before consequence, emphasizing that restraint was not loss, but elevation. Yet his calmness was interpreted as weakness, his patience as irrelevance, and his warnings as an affront to the narrative Thamud had carefully built about itself. The ruling class, whose authority depended on uninterrupted control, felt their legitimacy slipping, and rather than reflect, they retaliated through persuasion and fear, reshaping public opinion with calculated precision. They whispered that Salih sought to dismantle tradition, that the camel threatened economic stability, that obedience would lead to chaos, and slowly, subtly, the people began to echo these claims, comforting themselves with collective denial. The miracle, once undeniable, was now reframed as dangerous, and the test of faith transformed into a test of loyalty to power. This psychological shift marked a critical turning point, because Thamud no longer debated whether the sign was real, but whether it should be tolerated. In their stone halls, where architecture once celebrated ingenuity, councils now convened under tension, voices rising not in reverence but in resentment, arguing that no unseen authority had the right to dictate the affairs of a civilization so advanced, so disciplined, so secure. Salih warned them repeatedly that history is not destroyed by ignorance alone, but by the deliberate rejection of truth after recognition, that arrogance is most dangerous when it wears the mask of reason. Yet his words echoed unanswered through corridors carved to amplify sound but not conscience. Generations raised amid abundance dismissed the warnings as superstition, while elders clung to distorted tradition, unwilling to accept that blessings can coexist with moral decay. The camel became a scapegoat for every inconvenience, blamed for strained resources, disrupted routines, and wounded pride, and as blame intensified, restraint weakened. Thamud's greatest illusion now stood fully exposed. They believed that permanence of structure guaranteed permanence of favor, that mountains carved by human hands could outlast divine decree, and that delay in punishment meant exemption from judgment. Their engineering brilliance, once a testament to human potential, now served as insulation against humility, reinforcing the dangerous belief that consequence could always be engineered away. Prophet Salih, aware that his time among them was drawing toward its inevitable conclusion, intensified his call with sorrow rather than anger, reminding them that no civilization collapses suddenly, that destruction is the final chapter of a long narrative written by repeated choices, each one ignored, excused, or justified. Still, fear of losing authority outweighed fear of accountability, and the leaders, trapped by their own pride, concluded that the only way to restore control was to eliminate the sign entirely. In the shadows of the mountains they trusted more than truth, plans solidified, resolve hardened, and Thamud crossed the final internal boundary that separates error from defiance, choosing domination over obedience, certainty over humility, and silence over warning, unaware that in attempting to preserve their illusion of power, they were stepping directly into the final phase of their own undoing.